So thanks for joining me again on this wonderful title, The 7 Potentially Deadly Church Sicknesses. Once again, let me remind you as we've gone through this series, and we're all the way to sickness number 5 now, that there are key words that you never need to remember. One of these is the 7. That phrase is the illnesses that we think are most common. We know that this is not an exhaustive list, but as we have heard from thousands and thousands of pastors and other church leaders, church members, and staff members, we see these again and again. So we think these are among the most common. The next phrase is potentially deadly. Now, there are two things about this. It's potential. It doesn't have to be a reality. All of these diseases can be reversed. None of them would indicate that death is a foregone conclusion. So they can be reversed. And then church sicknesses. We're using the metaphor of the church, whether it's healthy or not, which I think is an appropriate metaphor when we look at 1 Corinthians 12 and we see the church as the body of Christ. We're trying to look at the health of the body. Quick just listing of the 7 that we are covering in this series. We've already gone to attitudinal angst. We've already looked at slippage syndrome. We've also looked at detailed distraction as well as institutional idolatry. And now we're to the 5th sickness, activity, acclimation. All right, let's look at that defined. What does activity, acclimation mean? It is defined this way: a church illness where the members see busyness to be the same as commitment and or godliness. Think about that. A church illness where the members see busyness to be the same as commitment and or godliness. I don't want to make the church analogous to a business organization, but as a part of this organization, Lifeway, that I lead, I can just give you a little bit of background. I don't look for people to see how busy they are. I look for people to see how productive they are. The best employees around here may not be, they always are working hard, but they may not just be doing these busy activities. What I am looking for are people that will make a difference. It's the same principle, but even more importantly, with the local congregation. What God would want us to do are those things that make a difference. We talk about stewardship, and what do we usually think of? Money. Absolutely. Money is an indication of where our heart is. Check the debit card records or the financial statements or the checkbooks of people, and you can get an idea of where their priorities are. So stewardship definitely is related to finances or money. But stewardship is also related to time and effectiveness. In fact, for many people, time is one of the most precious resources that we have, even more so than money. So how much more should it be in the local church, where God has chosen to carry out His purpose? And think about that. From the book of Acts to the founding of the church in Jerusalem to the 7 letters in the first few chapters of the book of Revelation, the vast majority of the New Testament, all of the New Testament after the Gospels, all of the New Testament after the Gospels are about local churches. Many of them are letters to local churches, primarily by Paul, but also by Peter. And these are indicators of how important God sees the local church as His instrument to carry out His mission. We know this too. Local congregations are fallible. We have our issues. There is no such thing as a perfect church. If you continue to look for a church that is perfect, you will always be a church hopper moving from one church to the next. So, what we need to be looking at more than anything is how to get our churches healthier. And let me put it another way. To ask the question, what can I do to make my church healthier? It's easy to listen to me or to watch this set of videos and to say, oh, that's what they need to do. I wish others were watching this. But what can I do as a pastor? What can I do as a staff member? What can I do as an elder or a deacon or a church member or a church leader? What can I do to make my church better? Activity acclimation means that we have become used to, we have become acclimated to busy work. And that is how we justify and measure our effectiveness. I have mentioned this in the past, but I'll bring it back again. The church calendar is one of the primary symptoms of activity acclimation. The church calendar can indicate all these things that are going on. I've looked at some church calendars, and even if I don't attend anything that's on there, I get exhausted just reading them. It's like we are a church that worships busyness instead of we are a church that desires for the glory of God to be most effective for His kingdom. Churches are incredibly busy. And this is where this particular illness can get disguised. It's because you can see people working. You can see people active as they can be. You can see people running around like ants trying to build an anthill, but they're not doing anything that is productive. And as a result, the church says we're doing great things because we're active. As I indicated in an earlier sickness detailed distraction, I encourage you to go back and look at your church calendar. See if it's more activities than those things that really make a difference for the kingdom. If you don't have a church calendar, create one. Look at your own personal calendar, see what you are doing in the church. See if there's maybe some degree of activity acclimation in your own life. Are you doing things that keep you busy? Are you doing God's business? Two distinctly different things. Ironically, this particular illness is also a hindrance to doing things that could get the church well. And why is that? Because these activities are often disguised as healthy signs. And we see, okay, they are healthy, and so we don't need to do anything. I know the case of someone who is an avid runner, stayed in good shape, had all kinds of good health, but he never went to the doctor. He thought, I'm in too good a health to go get a physical exam. And we're using the body metaphor again and again to talk about the church. And then he had a massive heart attack. He did not know that there was an underlying problem there, a blockage there that could not be seen from the outside. And so his otherwise healthy appearance disguised the reality of the sickness within him. That's why this particular illness is so dangerous. Activity acclimation can often be disguised as something that is good so that we do not take any action with it. This is truly a hindrance to getting the church well again. Where is its origins? Well, I could name many potential different origins of activity acclimation, but one of them is the program-driven church. Now, please hear me well. I like programs. I like ministries. A program is a resource given that will help you to do certain activities or ministries within your church. I get that. But many times we just go out and get programs and fill slots. And instead of truly being driven by the purpose of God for our churches, we're driven by the program. And we think, as long as we're doing these programs, we're doing everything well. In my own denomination, we used to have a checklist of programs we needed to be involved in if we were a healthy church. And basically, it was the programs that were sent from the institutional organizations that wanted you to buy those particular programs. So one of the origins, it's not the only origin, but one of the origins of the program-driven church. By all means, use programs. But don't use programs as ends, use them as means. What's a common symptom of this again? Conflict for time, slots, and conflict for space. This particular group wants to use this space. This particular group wants this particular time on the calendar. And what is happening is in a church calendar, you're beginning to see these conflicts. It is possible, maybe in some churches even likely, that you are activity acclimated and you are just seeing people compete for times and spaces because they think that activities are what they are supposed to be doing. So that is another symptom where you are seeing these conflicts and competition for time and space. But here's the irony of activity acclimation. The most common symptom of this illness or this sickness, the most common symptom is denial. Because church members can be so busy, because the church calendar can be so full, because we seem to be doing so much and we're running around and potentially even burning ourselves out. Because of these things, we don't see the underlying sickness that is there. So one of the primary symptoms of this is a denial that there's anything wrong. We are a healthy church. How do you know? look at all of the things that we are doing. In other words, look at all of the activities that we are engaged in. Quite frankly, folks, in many of our churches, we're keeping our members so busy that we're denying them ministry to their families and to the community. We have become activity-driven churches in many congregations across our land. Is it possible that activity acclimation is a disease in your church? Be willing to confront that reality and then see what God will do about it. So thank you again for being here for the Rayner Report. Always a joy to be with you. Thank you again to our sponsor, Costco, a design build firm. If you have building needs, facility needs, building a new building or remodeling any facility need, contact Tim Songster at Costco. You can reach them at churchdesign.com. That's churchdesign.com. Thank you again for being a part of the Rayner Report. Next week, if you're watching this in weekly segments, we'll be covering purposeless prayer as we get to the 6th of the 7 potentially deadly church sicknesses. I'll see you on the other side.